over that Zoo Warlock. Now just has to finally win with the Mage, which if it's Freeze Mage, he's going to have a pretty good time, I feel.
Yeah, and then also going up against the Shaman. I mean, I know Shaman, if he doesn't come kind of swinging out of the gates and have a big Doomhammer turn to follow up, a Freeze Mage can often get the better of that matchup as well. Just buy enough time. Doomsayer, I know, is a nightmare for that deck to deal with, where it thrives on strong early game drops. If a Doomsayer actually goes off, it's difficult for Shaman to really get a stable board position, and it is Freeze Mage, which, again, just zero surprise here. Just almost known for his Freeze Mage play. He's been playing it for years at this point, and is such a great player with it. And if you're trying to learn anything about this deck, this is one of the guys to watch.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people will know EU as being the region that has more, solid Freeze Mage players, but there are a lot of sort of like underground Freeze Mage players in NA, and I just want to go ahead and say right now that I think Laughing is an honorable member of the NA Freeze Mage team because he plays on the NA servers, even though he's from EU. Even players like Killin' All Day, who plays a crap ton of Freeze Mage at High Legend. And just saying, he's a guy that always has his network, his web of practice partners and people that he talks to. So he always sort of gets the best lists and from that web.
Yeah, very linear play for the most part in this matchup. It is, can Justsaiyan stall out long enough and draw enough cards before the overwhelming pressure from Phonetap gets him. And Pyroblast's pretty dead in hand at the moment, but this should help him plan out some of his turns.
Mm-hmm.
If he knows that he can live going into turn 10 and have Phonetap at 10, that's obviously the ideal situation. Burn kind of adding up very quickly in his deck. Phonetap's going to be looking to basically not use Life Tap this game and just try to keep pressure rolling as long as possible. And Darkshire Councilman is a great way to do this. It's actually one of the most powerful cards in this matchup, simply because you play it, and if it doesn't get checked, it deals an absurd amount of damage. So to see him go with it this turn, I think is absolutely the right call.
He's trying to think how he can get punished, but there's not really a way that he can get punished. Coin Fireball would be the only response to it. And you really can't let it get out of control, but at the same time, you can't overreact to it if you're just saying going into the other turn. So he does have Frost Nova. He's a Doomsayer away from being able to have that crazy board clear that Zoo Warlocks don't really have much of a counter to besides Crazed Alchemist if that's in their deck. So we're just going to torch this Dark Peddler down, take the slow route.
Yeah, this is a great turn for Forbidden Ritual as well. Might consider adding the Argent Squire to it just to get something a little bit more sticky on board. But if this isn't a turn for Forbidden Ritual, I don't know where you have one.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a single card that, one, gives you 4 immediate damage because of the Darkshire Councilman, and it also just makes a board full of 1/1, so you go really wide with it. And he's going to find a middle ground here, but I still like this. It's more damage right up front.
Right. Yeah, I kind of like this too. I mean, just, pressuring before your opponent has an opportunity to. He's obviously looking at those 2 power overwhelmings and thinking to himself, how quickly can I kill him? And the answer is probably 2 turns if he doesn't have Frost Nova or if he doesn't have Blizzard.
Mm-hmm. Justsaiyan has all of those things, but if he puts in enough damage, then all of a sudden, if Justsaiyan keeps playing expensive cards like Blizzard each turn, then he might not have a chance to develop Ice Block, and Photop could draw into Leroy Jenkins and be able to power overwhelming if he can apply enough damage. So that's what he's sort of thinking about here. I'm going into one of those turns where my board is very likely to get frozen. My opponent, so let's coin, and we haven't seen a freeze effect yet, so it's likely that he has either Frost Nova or Blizzard in order to counter my board. So how do I put myself in the best position to win, knowing that it's very likely that I won't be able to use my board going into these next turns?
Yeah, to me, this looks pretty reasonable to just play Argent Squire and Defender of Argus, but at the same time, I think it's also reasonable to do just this and then start the Life Tap train afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
You push the damage, put your opponent as far into range as you possibly can. So now Justsaiyan's in Leroy range. So if Phonetap actually draws Leroy here, Justsaiyan's dead. Now, on 6 mana, he wouldn't be able to cast both Power Overwhelmings. I mean, leaving the Argent Squire back, it's not really relevant on this board. So this is actually a really good spot from Phonetap here to make sure that he pushes and plays to an out that is immediate next turn. And Justsaiyan, seeing Phonetap make this play is just going to set Ice Block.
Yeah, and not only is this a play to set up his lethal, it's also a play to show Justsaiyan that he's setting up for his lethal, which forces him to play a little bit more defensively and might give him an edge in that regard. And I really like this. I mean, he made a good read. He said, well, against Freeze Mage, I'm probably not going to be able to use my board next turn, so I might as well get one of these Power Overwhelmings out of my hand while I can, because that Argent Squire, that 1/1 Argent Squire without a Divine Shield, that's not really doing you much good, just sitting there on the board if you know that it's likely for it to get frozen. So really great spot. But now the hard part is actually finding that last bit of damage that you need in order to actually win the game.
Yeah, to me, I don't really see too much reason to go ahead and launch this out. If Justsaiyan doesn't have an answer to this board state, he's likely just done anyway. Mm-hmm. So that's what Phonetap's considering. What is the damage actually worth at the moment?
Yeah. Juggles can also, get your opponent closer to range, but also bring your opponent down from 7 to 6 or 7 to 5 really does nothing, because, and it might even be more hurtful than it is beneficial, because what that does, it makes it so that you can't pop the block at a lower total, because you'll have to get it in with Leroy. I mean, you need an extra damage anyway, but you wouldn't be able to set your opponent at 1. So now he's going to be able to do a lot of damage with this juggler.
Not only that, but this also puts Justsaiyan in a position from Phonetap's perspective where if he doesn't have a second Blizzard or a Flame Strike, this board's going to live, and that could be very problematic. And honestly, Sir Finley not looking too bad right now.
Yeah. You could even fit in one last tap before you play the Sir Finley. But then you forego
2 taps as well. I mean, like, he just takes Finley, life taps, plays a minion, and then next turn life taps again and plays Finley. The question here is how much damage does he want to take from his life taps? But I think I like the Finley there a little bit more. Finding a Warlock Hero Power is a huge deal.
Or Hunter Hero Power? He already has the Warlock Hero Power.
I'm sorry, yeah, I don't know why I said Warlock Hero Power. I guess it's because the one I always take. I meant the Hunter Hero Power, of course.
Yeah. Even in ping, a mage ping would be really good, because that allows you to still get that face damage in when your board is frozen. And I guess Phonetap sort of realized, that's good.
I think this is Soulfire face. What if the event that's an ice barrier instead of an ice block?
But do you... I guess that's true. And you
Absolutely.
just give up the Power Overwhelming, or
what do you need it for?
Better to? Point? Yeah, I suppose that's correct. Because you don't want to tap and risk drawing into like Leroy, and having that be discard instead of the Power Overwhelming.
Yep. Like the play from Phonetap. This is going to put Justsaiyan on a big back foot. I mean, he's a mana away from Alex Straza right now. He's used 2 Blizzards. He's used a Frost Nova. How does he live? I mean, he may have to Frostbolt a 1/1 here. Forgotten Torch will certainly help out. Ice Block helps out. Ice Block's a fantastic draw, actually. This will allow him to Alex himself back to 15 after this block gets popped.
But the thing is, he doesn't have a way to stop the block from being popped. Even if he Frostbolts the Imp Gang boss, that'll still spawn a 1/1, which will leave 3 damage on the board regardless. Even if he pings this off, so he knows his block is getting popped. So, will that 15 health in the 8/8 body from Alex Straza be enough for him to close out the game? Because he'll be out of ice blocks, and that 15 health will be all he has left for the rest of the game.
It's definitely what he's counting on here, and Phonetap draws a pretty sizable amount of damage here, but nothing to add to the board this turn. If he had drawn something to add to the board this turn and drawn the damage afterwards, this might have been a win for him. But in this spot, Justsaiyan's going to Alex Straza himself. He's going to go to 15, and his hope is going to be connect with Alex Straza and then have enough damage to finish the game afterwards.
I mean, it is possible. He's got a lot of burn in his hand.
It's 11 damage right now for Phonetap.
Is there any draws that he can find that would give it to him? He doesn't have any natural Power Overwhelmings left. Flame Imp is not what he wants to do. And now, Justsaiyan just needs 14 damage. Does he have 14 damage in his hand?
Well, that's if Phonetap decides to not trade here. I mean, I think there is some consideration for it. But
that's
man,
so
does
much
that look
damage.
ugly. I know. That's the problem here is now Phonetap's in this spot where he's got to figure out which direction is going to win him the game more often. And this is something that's terribly difficult to figure out is discerning what your opponent's likely hand range is in this spot and then figuring out whether you should trade off an 8/8 or actually push 8 damage. And if he could see Jutstsaiyan's hand right now, he would gladly trade.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of this game. He has to take a guess at what Justsaiyan has, and with that load up there, I'm guessing that's a trade.
And he's going to flame up on top of it, so he's going to bring himself even further back down. And now, as long as Justsaiyan can just sort of like find a freeze effect or something to just give him another turn, he has so much damage in his hand. I mean, he's got 22 damage total, more if you count Blood Mage Thanos into there. He needs 2 turns to be able to do that, so he needs to be able to find a way to deal some damage while also buying himself another turn.
Yeah, to me, it looks like Fireball, Frostbolt Face, Forgotten Torch on the Direwolf Alpha, Say Go, and Pyroblast.
Yeah.
And just hope. I mean, there's not another way to really sustain through this unless he wants to, take a risk at drawing a card. But at this point, you're looking at 7 damage on board from Phonetap. The only card left in the deck that's going to get the damage done is either Leroy or maybe a Doomguard if he believes that that's there.
Mm-hmm.
And you can set up lethal next turn. And I know that Firebat once told me if you can set up a turn 2 lethal, you do it.
Yeah.
And I've just been in agreement with that since. I've had a lot of success with that.
All right, and it looks like that's going to be the case. I mean, he gets the Forgotten Torch out of the way because he knows that he has to deal with that. But it's basically between, ping down the Abusive Sergeant to get rid of the Leroy out? Okay.
This is going to take 2 turns to kill now.
Yeah. Or... No, yeah, it's going to take 2 turns no matter what. I don't think there's a single draw that'll get him there next turn.
This is going to be potentially costly here. I mean, if Phonetap is able to put out some damage here and sustain, this could be a situation where Justsaiyan actually doesn't win.
So let's try and backtrack and think why he got rid of the Leroy out for 1 turn. He knows there's no power warmings.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I guess
It actually doesn't get rid of Leroy out here because Phonetap has Knife Juggler to go with it. So if that Knife Juggler connects with Face, this is a 33% chance to win here from Phonetap. This is Knife Juggler Leroy all day and evaluate.
Wait, there's 5 damage on board. Leroy plus
it's going to spawn. It spawns the 2/1 ones.
It's going to spawn the 2/1 ones first. Oh,
the juggle hits an
imp. Get it.
Yep, I think this is just trade off here, and then hope Justsaiyan doesn't have 11 damage, which he doesn't right now. Down to 2. Justsaiyan needs a freeze. Roaring Torch. That's enough.
That's enough! Oh my goodness, exact lethal. And that's exactly what Justsaiyan was hoping for. He had 2 outs because he had both Roaring Torches in his deck. So I was trying to think, what is he thinking? He's thinking, well, he's mostly going to tap next turn. And instead of setting up that two-turn lethal, he said, well, I'm going to get rid of the Leroy out, and I'm just going to go for Roaring Torch and hope that it works out.
I'm a little bit surprised by that. I mean, it happened to pay off this time. But every single time Phonetap doesn't draw Leroy, he loses that game. Yeah. And the way that Justsaiyan play it, he need to actually draw damage to add on top of that in order to win that game in the situation where he does draw Leroy. So I wonder if he was just thinking to himself, you know what? I'm just unlucky enough that I know that Phonetap's going to draw Leroy.
So what's more likely there? Phonetap drawing into Leroy or Justsaiyan drawing into the Roaring Torch? Because that's what's going through his head, I guess. And I think the likelihood that he draws Roaring Torch is less.
Plus, he doesn't have any fireballs left because he used one early on, so he used the second one there. I mean, he had to draw Roaring Torch, I think. I mean, Frost Nova would have also delayed the board just enough because he could have added minions on top of that to try to absorb some juggles. A lot of different ways to stay alive, but my goodness, I'm very surprised he didn't go for just
to the lower match where he'll play the loser between Chalky and Terrence M, sort of a rematch from that DreamHack Austin final. So really excited and looking forward to that one. But before we jump into that match, we are going to have to take a quick break. During the break, make sure you guys head over to guycode.onog.gg. Get that Guycode quote. Save yourselves M, sort of a rematch from that DreamHack Austin final. So Really excited and looking forward to that one. But before we jump into that match, we are going to have to take a quick break. During the break, make sure you guys head over to geico.onog.gg. Get that Geico quote. Save yourselves some money on that insurance. Also, enter in to win that cyber-powered PC. But don't go anywhere. 3-minute break before we jump into the next match. Don't go anywhere, guys. More 2016 One Nation of Gamers circuit right after this.